Okay, I have to put down the goofball hat and get on the serious interviewer hat now for this one. I am pleased to be joined tonight by Eric Rykal. He is the owner and brewmaster at Modicum Brewing in no longer Altoona, now Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Eric, welcome to Badger Beer Hour.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so you're here for some newsy related things that I kind of alluded to here. But can you first tell us about kind of the backstory of Modicum? When did you start up? What was what's your background?
Sure. Yeah. I've been brewing, for 15 or 16 years now for a lot of breweries in the area in West Central Wisconsin. And then in 2017, decided to open my own place. So we opened Modicum in July of 2017 in Altoona. Operated in that space for about 6.5 years. We were gearing up for a relocation to a brand new location in Eau Claire. And we just ran into some nightmare scenarios where the whole thing kind of went off the rails due to things outside of our control. And we ended up not having a location to move into. We were licensed to move in there, so we ended up having to close down and never thought we'd reopen again. And here we are a year later, and we're open. So,
how long? So it was a year that you were closed without any beer going out.
Yeah, total about 9 months, I think. Yeah.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about what happened there? I mean, you may not want to go down to the weeds too much, but I mean, kind of like what happened? Was this new place built out already?
No, it was in the process of being built out. A lot of why the whole thing fell apart has to do with just the regulatory side of licensing a brewery. We were licensed to move into the new location with our federal permits, which expire on one day and then start in the new location on the next day. I mean, they literally say like at midnight, you have to stop producing beer in this location and start producing beer in the other location. So some things on the construction side and with the owner of the building kind of fell way behind schedule and then ended up falling apart completely. And when that happened, we were kind of stuck in this strange in-between place because of our permitting. We're not a candy store or a shoe store or something. We can't just pick up and move down the street. We're a federally licensed manufacturer of a controlled substance, and that permitting is very difficult to change once it's in place. So when our new location really just fell through, we were all prepared, ready to move in there. And all of a sudden it just kind of evaporated before our eyes. And because we were permitted to operate in that space, it's not like we could go find another location. When everything kind of fell apart, I think over the course of 3 weeks, I had over 70 meetings with, the city, several municipalities, with real estate developers, with all sorts of people trying to figure out, all right, where can we go? But eventually you just kind of run into this situation where you think, even if we find the perfect location tomorrow, even if everything goes perfectly to plan and the financing works out and we get our permitting, done in record time, we'd still be probably a year or more out from opening. And so the prospect of running a business with little to no income for over a year, when you have employees relying on you for a paycheck and that sort of stuff, it became untenable pretty quickly. We looked into a few contract brewing options to kind of tide us over as we built things out, but it just started to get unbelievably expensive, and it just wasn't going to be a good long-term solution for anybody.
So wow. It's pretty remarkable here that you're here talking to us about this new chapter of Modicum with all that in mind. How did you get out of that morass and to where you are now?
Well, I mean, we literally just shut down. I never thought in a million years we'd reopen. People kept telling me, "Oh, you'll reopen, you'll find a space," and my response was, "No, I really don't think we will." I actually got a different job for about 5 months, and I went back to another brewery that I used to work for, running their lab and their quality control program, and was just kind of planning on doing that for the foreseeable future. And then all of a sudden, this opportunity to take over this space that we're currently in just kind of fell into my lap. Tom Brenneman, who was the owner and brewer at K Point Brewing on the south side of Eau Claire, called me one day and he said, I want to retire. I want to be out of here. And there's a brewery here. It's just sitting here ready for you to move in. So we very quickly made things happen. And within a few months, and honestly, in record time, we were in there brewing and we opened in beginning of July.
That, I mean, it's hard to, I think it's hard for somebody who's just kind of like following beer news or enjoys beer to like fully grasp how like unlikely that is, I guess, that
yeah,
that you can open a new location of any brewery in just a couple months is pretty wild. So tell us about this. Well, one thing I'd like to jump back to is, I mean, you had planned to make this move with, and that's kind of a I guess kind of a revisioning of what you wanted to do. Can you talk about like what you were, what Modicum was before, what you wanted to do in the new space, and how did that translate into the current? I mean, is it basically that new vision is just in a different location, or how did that all kind of shake out in terms of like, rethinking what the brewery is going to be?
Yeah, it's a little bit of the original vision for Modicum and a little bit of the planned vision for the relocation. We've kind of just wound up in this kind of middle area. But when I started Modicum to begin with, I mean the vision is in the name. I'd spent my entire career brewing for constantly growing, constantly expanding breweries. And I never wanted to own my own place. People would ask me, back in the heyday when breweries were opening left and right, everyone kept saying, when are you going to open your own place? And my answer was always never. I never want to own my own brewery. What kind of idiot wants to own their own brewery?
Happy being an employee. Yes.
Yeah. People pay me to make beer, and that's a dream. But eventually I just realized if I wanted to brew the kinds of beer that I wanted to make, I had to be the guy calling the shots. So, when I opened Modicum, my goal, having seen these constantly growing, expanding breweries, I wanted to stay as far away from that as I could. So our initial goal was really to be a 100% taproom only brewery. We opened with a 5-barrel brew house, and we were cranking out just shy of 500 barrels a year. Before we shut down, and we had really maximized that space. And I had always said I never wanted to grow, I never wanted to expand unless it would make my life or the lives of my employees easier. And so it kind of became pretty apparent that a small expansion was going to be necessary. We were never meeting demand, and we were constantly running out of beer, and we just outgrew the space. So we knew we needed to expand our production footprint a little bit. We also really wanted to improve the experience in the tap room. Our original location was a great spot to get started, but it was just that. It was a very startup friendly space with not a lot of potential for improvement. And when you're a taproom focused brewery, the experience of your customers is by far the biggest thing we need to work on. So we had planned this kind of newer space with better outdoor seating, more production capacity, just an increased square footage in the tap room. We're going to have access to food. We are actually partnering with some friends of ours who own an amazing pizza place here in Eau Claire. And they sadly kind of got put in the same boat we were, and they had to shut down for a short while as well. Now they're finally reopening a new location for themselves. I'm very happy everything worked out for them as well. But now we've kind of ended up in this new space where our production capacity is slightly larger than it was. I wouldn't say it's a huge improvement, maybe more of a lateral move, with, maybe a possibility down the road for expanding that. But our tap room experience is much improved. Our outdoor seating is much improved. We now have access to a kitchen with a full menu of food. So all of those things have kind of come to fruition, even though production wise, it was maybe more of a lateral step, but I'm actually okay with that. Again, the goal, like I said, it's in the name. The goal was always to stay as small as possible while still being financially feasible. So I think we've hit that sweet spot.
What can you talk a little bit about, like, what specifically kind of informed that philosophy? I mean, you mentioned a couple times seeing that growth, and like, I think, like, a lot of people on the outside, I think, envision growth as good, and that's like kind of the point of a business. For many people, this is a very different kind of approach. How did you get to that goal?
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's just, I'm a brewer. I'm not a businessman. I've always said our brewery has succeeded despite my every attempt to drive it into the ground. And I actually did succeed in doing that once, so that's good. Yeah, to me, it's just about focusing on what we're good at. And I think for us, we really wanted to declare what it is we do and do that well, and not focus on doing anything else. I have this kind of hatred for this very American business idea that you have to appeal to everybody all the time. And if you're not appealing to everybody all the time, you are missing out on sales, and therefore you have failed as a business. For me, I'd much rather give my money and time to business endeavors, or artistic endeavors, or however you want to see that really just focus on doing a handful of things very, very well. And so for us, that was always, setting a very small list of goals for the business. Growth was never one of them. It was always, make the best possible beer we can make, provide a good experience for our customers who come to visit us, and then be an active member in our community and pay, a good living wage and take care of our employees and make sure everybody's, able to live their life the way they want to, and enjoy their job and have a life outside of work. And all of those things are very important to us. And those are the things we focus on. Sales and distribution are not part of that equation for us. If we can pay a good living wage and have a positive impact in the world and do what it is we love to do, to me, that's everything we need to focus on.
That's pretty awesome. I know Landon is a big fan of Modicum, and I'm starting to kind of understand why. But I also, one other thing that I should ask about is your beer like your approach to beer is something that my understanding is right in the wheelhouse of our interests here on Badger Beer Hour. Can you talk about the kind of beers that you make and where your kind of tastes lie stylistically?
Yeah, I would say my personal tastes definitely lie more with classic styles. I came up in an earlier era of craft beer where pale ale was king, and that was about
Ambers, baby.
Yeah, amber lagers and pale ales. Yep. That's definitely where my interests lie. I definitely prefer more understated beers. I've never really been a fan of what I would consider more gimmicky things. I always say that, to me, a world-class beer is greater than the sum of its parts. And when you throw a ton of a fruit or an adjunct or something into a beer, that beer is no longer greater than the sum of its parts. If your beer tastes like chocolate because you put a ton of chocolate in it, then that to me is not interesting. But if you can make a beer that has no chocolate in it that tastes really chocolatey, then that's cool, or whatever the flavor is.
Mm-hmm.
So I tend to stick with the four basic ingredients. We don't do a lot of heavily adjuncted things. We don't do a lot of high gravity things. I like to drink beer, and I like to drink it in quantity. So most of the stuff we do is pretty standard strength, 12 Plato beers, or a little above or a little below that. It's not hip trendy beer. Well, lagers are kind of coming around a little bit now, so that's great. But we brew a lot of lager. We brew a lot of pale ale. Honestly, those are the two styles of beer that I like to drink the most. I love a good pale lager, and I love a really nice balanced American pale ale. So we brew a lot of that. But for me, it's just about providing complexity, and everybody says, balance and drinkability, but I mean, those are important. But I like a subtly nuanced, complex beer that is just made from the basic four ingredients. I think that's much more interesting when you can get complexity and notes out of malt and hops and yeast that maybe most people don't know are possible. That's always really fun to me.
Yeah. That's great. I do want to ask one question. I believe we've talked about this on Badger Beer quite a bit. This kind of new law that's allowing tap rooms and breweries to do a little bit more as far as their offerings that they don't make themselves. Did we actually say you are open? You opened back in July in the new spot, right?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
So this is just this summer, still pretty fresh. But how is that? What kind of wine liquor offerings are you doing in the tap room? How does it kind of complement what you're doing with beer, and how's it going? How's it being received?
Yeah, so we have a pretty extensive whiskey selection. I'm a big whiskey nerd, so we have a pretty solid whiskey selection. We have a relatively limited wine selection. We have 3 reds, 3 whites, and we do offer a handful of cocktails, but nothing that extensive. I would say still, with all of those offerings available, our sales are still over 90% beer. But it is really nice to have the option. If a group of people comes in and not all of them are beer drinkers, at our old location where we only had beer, they'd stick around for one and then they'd take off. So now we're seeing more retention, just in terms of hourly over the course of a night, but also people coming back. If people know that they can get a glass of wine or get a cocktail or whatever while their friends drink the beer, then they're more likely to come back. And obviously, as a tap room only business model, our repeat customers are our bread and butter. Our regulars are the only reason we're here, and this allows us to reach to a new group of regulars. It's been a blessing, I think. I was a little worried at first, that it would overshadow the fact that we are an actual brewery, and I didn't want to just be another bar. But we've been pretty selective in what we do. We're very selective in everything that we do. So our cocktail and wine menu is very, very limited. Our spirit selection is a little out of hand, I think, but again, it's a very limited portion of our sales. It's nice I find that a lot of beer nerds are also big whiskey nerds, so it's a great option.
I mean, are you doing little snitches on little samples on all those fancy whiskeys that you got in there? Because
we'll pour everything in a Glencairn for you. So it's pretty great.
Nice. Anything else? What are you excited about in the next coming weeks or months for as far as Modicum goes?
Well, I'm excited about getting our feet back under us. Since our opening, we've just been insanely busy. We're constantly running out of beer. So
the right problem to have, at least.
Great problem to have, but it's still a problem, and we need to remedy that pretty quick. So I'm excited about getting the production schedule more kind of tuned in. We had 7 years of experience at the old place, so we kind of thought we knew what the trends would look like, and we're finding that in the new space we're just much busier. Part of that is just people glad we're back, but part of it too is I think our new location is just so much better, and we're in a much better locale, more easily accessible. So we're just busier in general, and and we're trying to figure out how to keep production on pace with all that sort of stuff. And I'm excited about getting that underneath us. We're releasing our Oktoberfest beer in a couple of weeks, which always one of my favorite days of the year. Good excuse to bust out the lederhosen. When you own an expensive pair of lederhosen, you have to find as many excuses to wear them as possible. So
you have 3 Oktoberfest parties this year.
Yeah. We have them for a week long.
I mean, if you're maxed out on the beer stuff, maybe start pushing those whiskeys a little bit more.
Oh yeah, we've developed a bit of a reputation of having a great whiskey selection. We're attached to coffee grocery shop, a little bit of everything, called the Coffee Grounds, right next door to us, and they've been I have always explained that place as if you're a connoisseur of something, they sell it. Whether it be wine, whiskey, coffee, cigars, cheese, whatever you want, they've got it. And so we're really fortunate to be right next to them, and all the big whiskey snobs in town are coming there anyway. So
awesome, perfect. Eric, congratulations on this. Seems like an unlikely revival of Modicum, and keep killing it. I cannot wait to get up to or through Eau Claire. I will be definitely stopping in. That's sounds like 100% my wheelhouse. So
sounds great. Well, can't wait to see you.
All right. Cheers. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.